It's time to review the final game for 2014. A long time ago, I reviewed a series of games known as Streets of Rage. If you don't want to watch my reviews on them, I'll give you the gist of how I feel about the series. Game 1 was a fun, classic beat 'em up. Game 2 was more of the same and was, to me, meh. Game 3 was just an atrocity of a game. So whereas most games get better as the series goes on, this one's quality dropped exponentially. But there were people out there that wanted a Streets of Rage 4, and to satisfy this want, a bunch of fans got together and decided to code their own game. Called Streets of Rage Remake, it was a free game that took elements out of all three games, threw them into a blender, and saw what was going to come out. It's a fun game that is definitely worth checking out. I can't get into the story too much because it's really just there to say that the game has a story. Most of it just involves the street gangs appearing once again and Mr. X throwing his weight around. Because of this, every member of the good side teams up to fight again. Yeah, that's right. Every playable character makes an appearance in this game, making the roster count start at a simple 6 characters. But that's not all. There's an additional 6 unlockable characters, available after you complete the game once. They need to be bought in the game store, but I'll get to that later. Before I move on to the actual gameplay, let me talk about the options menu. There are a ton of things that you can change to customize it to your liking. Do you like the weapons that break after a certain amount of uses, or would you prefer them to be used indefinitely? Do you or don't you like the newly implemented guns? How about the minor elements called blood? What about the special meter? Each of these things, along with others, are available to set to your liking. Now onto the gameplay. At its core, it actually plays most like Streets of Rage 3. You have your special meter, weapon health, etc. However, that ends at the gameplay. At the start of the game, you choose which path to start on. Some of these paths have branching ways so that you can alter the end destination. One path may start in Streets of Rage 1, another 2, and another a mixture of all of them. It's pretty cool. In addition, all of the music is redone. It's not the eardrum-destroying mess that was in Streets of Rage 3. Well, those songs are back, but remastered, so ultimately they sound much better. Even the amazing songs that were present in the original game are redone and somehow sound even better. Overall, it's a much better sounding soundtrack. Now, you may be asking at this point, well, Reaper, you bitched and moaned and carried on about how much Streets of Rage 3 sucked. Why the fuck are you praising this game? It's just the same thing! Well, I'll answer that. First off, there's new cutscenes that were implemented. These were all fan done, and as I said before, are skippable and forgettable, but they are there. Secondly, there is a new experience level system. Although it doesn't do a lot, it does give you access to brand new dashing moves. The further your level is, the more powerful that dashing attack is. If you die, the level goes down by 1. Although the experience level is shown by the amount of stars that are shown here, you never see what your experience points are at, so you can never be entirely sure on when you're going to level up. Sadly, the max level you can acquire is 3, so it would have been nice to see a much more expanded system for this. Thirdly, the game is extremely challenging and feels more like an arcade game than a console game. Enemies will aggressively attack you, and you'll see more enemies on the screen at one time than you ever have in any of the official Sega games. Think Final Fight 1 brutality, and that's what you get here. There is also an extremely high level of detail to the game. In addition to remaining faithful in the source games, there are a lot of little things that make the game even more fun. Depending on the material you're walking on, your character's footsteps make different noises. There are shadows in the game, and on the beach level, you will see footsteps in the sand. Now that's cool. There are also a few new stages in the game. One such example is the rooftop level, where the whole stage is on fire. Even more cool. I mentioned guns, so I'll touch on that quickly. There are only 2 that I've seen, and they are fairly rare. Each has limited ammunition supply. One is a machine gun that doesn't really do a ton of damage and requires 3 or so shots to actually take down an enemy. The other is a rocket launcher, which is really fun to fire at your enemies. It's about time you can turn the tables on these sorts of games and wield a gun against brawling enemies. Usually it's your character bringing a knife to a gunfight, especially in final boss battles. So let's move on to the store. As you play the game, you'll get points, both by defeating the thugs and by picking up any sort of collectibles that you find laying around. Enemies can also drop items upon defeat, which is yet another new feature. When you complete the game, your points are put into the pool, and you can use these points to unlock things in the store. Things you can purchase range from various cheats to alternate characters and other bonus material. It's not entirely necessary to buy anything from here, but the option is available. If anything, these options allow you to customize the game even further. There's no real way to save the game, other than the autosave that occurs when you quit it. If you quit in the middle of an active playthrough, it will save your game. However, if you manually exit to the menu and then quit, the game doesn't save. It's a bit strange. You would have thought that since there's a save system, you shouldn't be forced to abruptly quit the game instead of going to the menu first. It would have also been nice to be able to hit escape and save your game that way. At least the playthroughs only last about an hour per path, so you can essentially complete the majority of the game in about 4 to 5 hours. It's a hell of a deal for a beat-em-up game like this. Because of all the playable characters, the store, and all the customizable options, the game boasts a very high replay value. Maybe you want to clear the entire game with every character, or maybe you just want to play using different options, just to tailor the game to your liking. It's really worth playing multiple times. To wrap this up, Streets of Rage Remake truly feels like the real sequel to the game. Oddly enough, it was actually shut down by Sega, but then was allowed to come back up a short time later. As of the time of this review, the game is still free to download. If you've never played any of the Streets of Rage games, this is the perfect way to get introduced to the series. With a dozen playable characters, the redone graphics and music, and the mixture of the best elements of the series, there is absolutely no reason not to like this game unless you hate brawlers. Final score? 10 out of 10. Oh, that's another year down. If you want to see what else I have a preview video up on YouTube and also on my Facebook, facebook.com/ReapersViews. As always, this is Reaper. Let's look forward to 2015. Happy fragging.